All right, good afternoon. Mr. Ulfers, would you introduce yourself? Tell us your name and DOC number, please.
My name is Ronald Ulfers. My DOC number is 517082.
Ulfers, you're here this afternoon seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in the 22nd Judicial District, St. Tammany. November 2006, you received a life sentence for second-degree murder. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, let me just acknowledge the folks who have joined us today. We have Andrew Hundley with the Parole Project. We have some family members, John Ulfers, Daniel Ulfers, Lori Ulfers, Daniel Ulfers, and Ron Ulfers. And speaking on your behalf will be Lori and Ron. We'll call them at the appropriate time to do as appropriate. We also have joining us by phone Miss Linda Roy, who is representing the victim, and we'll call on her at the appropriate time also. Your case this afternoon, Mr. Ulfers, has been assigned to Mrs. Jackson, seated to my far left. Would you answer her questions, please?
Good afternoon, Mr. Ulfers. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. I am a little hard of hearing, and I'm having a little
Okay.
difficult.
Try to speak up, okay?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. How old are you, Mr. Ulfers?
I'm 70 years old.
And how much time have you served in this case?
September will be 17 years.
And the victim in this case was your second wife. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us what happened to her.
Basically, 27 years ago, I did something that was unimaginable. I caused the death of my wife.
How did you cause the death of your wife?
She drowned behind our house. We were having some marital problems. And we started talking about where our marriage was headed. And it escalated into an argument. We grabbed each other and we fell into the waterway. And at that time, I didn't realize that she stopped struggling. And
And you what?
I'm sorry. I
So your story today is that you all were struggling and you both fell into the water and she drowned. Is that what you were saying today?
Yes, ma'am.
So why didn't you pull her out of the water?
Because I knew I did. I held her. I looked up. I looked up and I said, Debbie, I love you. And I held her. And
Why didn't you pull her out of the water?
she was dead. She was cold. Her arms were cold. All I could do was hold her and cry.
You and she fell into the water at the same time.
Yes, ma'am.
Why would she be cold? Why would her body be cold? Why would she be dead? Why did you go out of the water after the two of you fell into the water?
We were struggling, and I was holding her. I didn't realize I was holding her under the water, but I was. And
Because what you're saying is making no sense to me.
I'm sorry.
I said, what you're saying doesn't make a lot of sense to me. What then, if this was some accidental drowning, why did you call the police and report her missing when you knew all the while she was down at the dock? Why did you do that?
I couldn't admit to myself that I had done something so terrible.
But you haven't told us the terrible thing that you did.
I'm sorry, Miss Jackson.
What is the terrible thing that you did?
I took her life
How?
by drowning her.
Intentionally?
No, not intentionally. I did not do that intentionally.
This is like the third story that you told about this. First, you called the police and you reported her missing.
Yes, ma'am.
Then when they came, you kind of got them down to the dock to look down there, and you found her in the water. And according to the police report, you then, went in the water and you pulled her out. And the cause of death or the manner of death was undetermined. And then when the case was re-examined and it was ruled to be a homicide, you told a different story, that you were struggling, you pushed her into the water, and you never said anything about you being in the water with her. You pushed her, she fell in the water as part of the struggle, and then you left her there in the water.
Miss Jackson, I was ashamed of myself. I couldn't admit to myself what I had done. I didn't want to admit to anyone what I had done.
And you're not Mr. Owner, you're not admitting to anyone today what you've done. The coroner's examination that took place, I think in 2002, found evidence of, blunt force trauma that would have been inconsistent with someone falling the short distance. And
I don't, honestly don't know how she got the head injuries that she had. And she had 2 or 3 bruises on her head. And she could have hit her head on the bulkhead when we went into the water. I don't know. I have no idea.
Okay. All right. What was this business about her taking $70,000 from an elderly person, running off to Miami with another man, running out of money, and then coming back to you and you took her back? Why would you say something like that?
It was the truth. I'm not sure who I told that to, but it was the truth.
And then you told them that somebody told you she had been arrested 27 times. I mean, it seems like you were doing everything in your power to paint her in a negative light.
No, it wasn't that. My previous wife, Debbie.
Well, I wasn't going to talk very much about your previous wife, but she was also murdered in your home in 1979 in an apparent burglary attempt. a gentleman was convicted of that crime and served 34 years in prison and was ultimately exonerated and found not to have been innocent of the charge. So somebody served 34 years in prison for killing your first wife for a crime he did not commit.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, it's very unusual for a person to have two wives for them to both end up dead in acts of violence. That's kind of, you know, concerning to me. So we'll just leave it at that. You have opposition in the case from the DA, the Sheriff's Office, the victim's sister. On the other hand, you do have a lot of support from your family, from a lot of people involved in the reentry program. Your risk is low. You've only had, you've had no write-up whatsoever. You participated in a lot of programs. Tell us about programs that you've been most active in, Mr. Ulfers.
I'm sorry, programs what?
That you've been active in.
Yeah, what?
Program that you've been active in.
Getting it right, inside, outside dad, financial planning. A lot of, the majority of the programs with the reentry program that I'm involved in, up until 2 years ago, I was teaching a bunch of the classes, but I came down with cancer. And so I had to cut back on a lot of my teaching. The only class I teach at this time is the financial planning class.
And you had been a police officer at some point in time, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You were a police officer at the time of your second wife's death?
Yes, ma'am.
Or why were you no longer with the police department?
I had cancer back in 1986 also, and I took a disability pension.
And that was not related to the death of your first wife? There was nothing brought up and you were terminated. You had to appeal to get your job back. You don't get terminated for cancer.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand what you said.
I said you were terminated because of the events surrounding the death of your first wife.
Yes, ma'am.
And you ended up appealing that dismissal and you were successful, but you were not terminated because you had cancer. You were terminated because of suspicions revolving around death of your first wife. Isn't that correct?
In other words, I was terminated in 79, I believe it was, for possession of stolen property, and that was involving my first wife. I was reinstated. The detective basically stated at the civil service hearing that my termination was just to put pressure on me because of the investigation of the death of my wife.
Because they suspect that you have been involved in the death of your wife.
Yes, ma'am. My understanding of the higher up rank did, from what I was told. But I was reinstated, and I guess about 5 years later or whatever, I came down with the cancer. And they wanted me to take a disability, which I took.
You have a number of letters of support, including people from your family, the reentry program, some of the reentry mentees, all spoken well of you. Warden Amber, what can you tell us about Mr. Ulfers?
Mr. Alford has taken a plethora of classes. He also has facilitated Inside Out and Getting It Right. He participated in Tyrol Leadership. He's one of the lead social mentors. He's very dependable in that area, and he sets a good example for the mentees. He's a minimum age trustee that works as a mentor in the reentry court program.
Thank you, Warden Amber. Mr. That's all I have.
Just one question.
All right, Mr. Roche.
Mr. Alford,
Yes, sir.
Alvin Roche, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing?
I have one question. At the time of your first wife's death and your second wife, both of those individuals were in the process of divorcing you. Is that correct?
I wasn't aware that my first wife was until after her death. My second wife, we were talking, about where our marriage was headed.
So both of those individuals were in the process of divorcing. Is that correct?
Yes, I would say that's correct.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
All right, I don't see any other questions, so we'll go to the support, Mr. Huntley with the parole project.
Andrew Hunley, Louisiana Parole Project, appearing to the board today to inform you that if Mr. Ulfers is released, that our organization will provide him reentry support into the community based on his outstanding disciplinary record in prison, what he's done as a reentry mentor, and his low risk level. We have a high degree of confidence in his ability to reenter the community and to be a good member of the community. He has given a lot to his local community at Angola, helped a lot of young men rebuild their lives on the inside, and we hope to give him the opportunity to do the same one day in the near future. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ms. Lori Ulfers.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Lori Ulfers. I'm married to Ron Jr. I met Ronnie and Debbie 27 years ago and 2 months. So I didn't know them together very well. I spoke to Debbie quite a bit on the phone. And, when all of this happened, of course, Ronnie didn't tell us, so he couldn't tell us, of course, what he had done. And, but these 4 guys are victims. All my girls are victims. He knows that. And I have seen, we have to live with this, but I've seen real sincerity from him. He is, I can honestly say, because it took me a long time to come around. And my girls, well, honestly, they didn't even know. They thought he worked for the CIA because my husband wouldn't tell them what had happened to him. So they, but they have forged a relationship and they love him. And we all love him. And I can promise you, I keep hearing from supporters that he is a low risk offender, but definitely offended the court. He offended our community, he offended the state, this size. But this man has made tremendous breakthroughs. If he's been given the opportunity, I definitely see him leaving a much better man, a better father, a better grandfather, a better friend. When we go to visit him at Angola, I was amazed because he's a quiet man, you know, so, but he's had lots of people that walk up and hug him and they tell us about the great things that he's done for them and, you know, and I believe he's worthy. I believe he's worthy.
Okay. Right.
Thank you for calling me first. I really couldn't steal any of my notes.
I'm Ron Jr. I was actually the last person to speak to them. She was mentioning my mother because she raised us since I was 4 and my brothers too. My daughter was always at their house. You know, we lost all of that. After it all occurred, I supported my father. Who was my father. And then eventually, when he came clean to us, that he was the cause of Deb's death. I went 3.5 to 4 years without speaking to him at all. And then one day, my 3 daughters wanted to go see him. And so I was against them going to see him. And Ori talked me into giving my blessing for them to go see him. And then, but I said, I'm absolutely not going. The night before, I decided I didn't go there. Without me, so I went. And then, ironically, at one point, all of them got up and had to go to the bathroom, and myself there with my father. So after quite an extended period of silence, he started talking, and then they came back. And at any rate, that started me starting to go see him again and speak to him. And the man that I knew prior to that, and the man that's there today is a different individual in reference to empathy and just there's no arrogance there. There's none of that. He's also a very sick man. I don't expect him to actually probably live another couple of years. He's at the point now he can't walk from wherever his dormitory is to go eat without taking 2 or 3 breaks, or at times having to get in the wheelchair. Basically, his heart's giving out. So you know, I don't know with the time frames he's given to eventually get out. I know from a health perspective, he's definitely at the end of his life, and certainly not a threat to anybody because he can't even barely, perform the functions that he needs to do every day. We obviously aren't opposing it, but we're victims. I mean, Lori said, I did it for my kids forever. Just because I didn't want them to have that burden. And obviously my brother and I, lost a second mother and a father. Because like I tell you, I had nothing to do with the man for years. I mean, he would call the house. I wouldn't answer the phone. I would take the calls. My children and Lori was supposed to. But I do believe that hopefully he it's an opportunity to get out. It does from where he would stay and what have you is we have a second house on our property where he would stay. It was before Lori's mother died, we had that for her, and that's where he moved in. And, lived by us. And, so that's it. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you,
Thank
sir. Thank you. All right, now we have Ms. Linda Roy. Ms. Linda, are you there? We'd like to hear from you now.
Okay. I want to say,
Yes, ma'am.
well, I don't feel like Ryan deserves to be out of his cell. Doing what he wants to do. Doing what he feels like doing. He's free. Enjoying himself. My sister cannot be brought back from the dead. It's done that to me. Everything. The only sister I had. I think he should be with that as long as he's living. It was cruel to her. Told me some things. One day we went to Thanksgiving and she told me some things about him and Annie had kind of turned against her. A little while later, it was in September. I got a call. I got home from work one day and I got a call from Mr. Johnny, his ex-father-in-law. Down to this. I said, yeah. He said, yeah, he's dead. I said, Ronnie killed her, didn't he? He said, yes. And I sat through the trial and I heard everything they had to say. And nothing changed my mind, but that he was angry because Debbie wanted to divorce him. He was going to do something. What do you get for it? Not funny, what if he loves people? He was willing to kill them. But she wouldn't take anything from him. Explanation now. I'm a past my headache now. Staying in that water really hurts. So bad. You shouldn't have to do that. You should have just wanted to force him. But he didn't do that. I mean, it's over. Laid your body down there by the water and put her in. It wasn't high enough that she stood up. She could have saved herself, I think. She must have been out of it. But anyway, I don't think that he's the type of person who should be living amongst the people of this world. That's how I feel about it. I'm sorry you got cancer. I feel bad about that, but he didn't feel bad when he was feeling like this. So I have no consideration.
Yes, ma'am.
Stay where he's at.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Roy. We do appreciate your participation.
Well,
And I see we have the district attorney's office has joined us. Would you like to make your statement? Mr. Clark?
Yeah, yes, I don't think I could hear you earlier.
Okay, we're ready for your statement.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Brian Clark on behalf of the 22nd Judicial District Attorney's Office. My office in this case is opposed to Mr. Ulfers' pardon. This crime involves a particularly brutal murder of an individual with a history of domestic violence, especially against this particular victim. Very cold and callous nature of the case. There also seems to be very much of a distinct lack of remorse on the part of Mr. Ulfers, especially his characterization of how the murder itself happened, the victim simply falling into the water and him walking off. Given the nature of this offense, the nature of the crime, Mr. Ulfers' history, including with his victim, and a lack of remorse or taking responsibility for this offense, the state would oppose any pardon in this case.
All right, Mr. Ulfers, is there a brief statement you'd like to make to the board before we vote?
I'd like to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to come before you. On September 20th, 1996 was the worst night of my life and something I relive all the time. I could have never imagined doing something like I did. I wish I had the words to say sorry, how sorry I am for my wife, Debbie, her sister, Lynn, her father, Raymond. My actions caused so much pain for so many people. Not only Debbie's family and friends, but my family and friends. It's caused pain for people I don't even know. Words cannot express the sorrow and regret I have. I may not deserve the opportunity to start over, but I'm asking this board to give me a chance. I have support from friends and family, support of wardens and staff, and my church group. I'm just asking this board to please give me the chance to start over, to do the things right. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Sir, thank you. I think we are prepared to vote. Mrs. Jackson will vote first.
Mr. Alford, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Alford, I acknowledge that you've done some really good things while you've been incarcerated. You've impacted the lives of other inmates who have been able to transition to a better life than before. And I don't discount in any way the good things that you have done during the course of your incarceration. But for me, 16 and a half years for a really heartless crime is insufficient. And it's ironic that the man who was wrongfully convicted of killing your first wife spent 34 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. And you've only spent, less than half of that for a crime that you did commit. And I just don't feel like the amount of time served in light of all of the circumstances of your case is sufficient to warrant a commutation.
Mr. Roche,
Madam Chairman, my vote is the same for the same reason.
Mr. Mirabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Alfers, you have done a lot of good things while you've been in there, but I agree with Judge Jackson. It's just insufficient amount of time. I think you need a little more work. Good luck to you. My vote likewise is to deny.
Mr. Freeman.
I concur with my colleague. My vote is
All right, Mr. Ulfers, you've received 4 votes to deny your application for clemency. So today, sir, your application's been denied. Good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Whew. He's a scary man. I'll unpack this. I'll try to do the best I can. It's I'm traveling and there's a big time difference, so I'm getting this when it's my early morning. And I just listened to it and I felt, I really want to do it. So I'll get it in. Like was said, it's ironic that the person who was framed for the first crime, it's unreal. This man was a police officer. And there's so much, like, it shows here people who had gotten these dumbheads. Like, people had gone to prison who had locked this man up, and the Innocence Project helped get him out. It was such a debacle. Yeah, here, one who became a judge and landed in federal prison for his role in a judicial corruption scandal that rocked Jefferson Parish Courthouse. After 34 years behind bars for a crime he didn't do, and it is laughable that he got arrested. Now, the man whose wife it was at a ball game with his girlfriend, so he had an alibi. But there is a lot of belief that he had set the whole thing up, of course, and then had his buddies get an innocent man locked up. This man is scary. He is very, very scary. Yeah, someone agreed to appear. Former NOPD police detectives lied on the witness stand to help convict Adam twice. In 1979, of Kathy Ulfers, the wife of former New Orleans cop who himself now is serving a life sentence for taking his second wife. Former officer Sam Gabio, who now works as an investigator, who served 5-year prison sentence in Florida after pleading no contest, negligent homicide, testified in those trials that no evidence or other suspects had been found before Adams gave them a statement while locked up. He said that he did it for a $10,000 hit job. But the police report missing from Adams' first trial in 1983 and gave him a retrial in 1990 showed that the police had found a gun that was used to shoot her 7 times in her home, linked to a .32 caliber revolver to a man and his sister. Both are now not alive. The report, basically, the whole thing was just completely set up. Like, so much corruption, man. Really scary. Adam was a victim of manifest intentional prosecutorial misconduct. We cannot tolerate this, they say. I wanted to find like video footage to share, but I couldn't find any. You're free to go, the judge said, after 30 years. So yeah, what happened? Like they arrested this guy. They then, in the interrogation room, were plying him with Valium, which is like Xanax, and alcohol for hours. And then they got him to confess. But even his confession was totally ridiculous because in his confession he said that he shot a man, and it wasn't a man. Of course, it was a woman. He described a man, and did not look like the woman at all. So even in this scenario where they did all those things to him, his confession still made no sense. And yet they gave him life. Plus all the other misconduct. Crazy stuff, it really is. Our system is seriously flawed. Here's an insert from his interrogation. How long have we been talking? About a good 3.5 hours, said the detective. About 3.5. You tired? Phoenicia asked. No, because I want to see them girls. This is what he said in his interrogation room. So who knows what they told him to get that response? Just who Adams meant by them girls was unclear. The police report written by Gabia and Veniza shows that the gun used to off Kathy Ulfers and jewelry stolen from Ulfers at home at the time were recovered by police within a month of the crime and traced to two people who had no connection with Mr. Adams. According to a motion filed jointly by Adams' attorney and Adams' confession, September 1980, nearly a year and a half after it even occurred. The report later turned up in an unrelated file on a burglary case, which Adams was earlier acquitted. It also turned up that the district attorney's file on Ronald Brands, who was arrested on suspicion of accessory to Ulfers' case, charged in possession of stolen property. Kinnick's office dropped the case before Adams confessed. The whole thing is worthy of a documentary. This whole thing is worthy of its own HBO miniseries or a Netflix miniseries. Here is a man who is literally set up by a police department, the same police department of which the man's wife, who was offed, he spends 34 years in prison. People who even involved in locking him up then got locked up themselves, like the judge. And then, the man whose wife was, gets locked up for offing his second wife. How is that possible? Her husband, who was an officer at the time, told investigators that $3,000 was missing from the nightstand, as was his police radio in the den. Several framed documents had been strewn about the floor, the police says, including a Department of Police diploma and commendation letters. Wow. Fruitless leads. It's a long article. I can't go through all of it, but I'll put it in the description. And when it's all said and done, he ends up getting, I think, $250,000 from the state, the maximum, which they're going to pay to him over 10 years. I think that was it. That was their sorry. I don't know if he can get more, but that's just crazy. And then this monster gets away with it. So he's like, hey, why not? So then he offs his next wife when she wants to leave him. Muddies her name, says that she ran off with another man. Meanwhile, she's terrified of him. And even in this whole story here, I don't know, she fell in the water. Then her body was cold. I fell in the water. It's like, what are you saying? You're not even making any sense. And to think that people would still get up and talk on his behalf, it's confusing. You know, you put blinds over your eyes and you say, you know what, he can't be that bad of a man. He couldn't have. They really have a polygraph excerpt here, really? Polygraph examination in a court hearing? In his second assignment, the defendant argues that there's an error in the trial prohibition to defense when questioning Detective Hall about his request to take a polygraph exam. Defendant asserts that Detective Hall concluded that the defendant was responsible for his wife's death and failed to fairly conduct and present the results of this investigation. In support, it argues that he should have been allowed to question Detective Hall about his acceptance of his offer to take a polygraph. Sociopaths would excel on any polygraph, and I do believe we're looking at one. I don't feel like I'm doing a great job on this unpacking. I'm in a hotel overseas right now. I should show you. It's quite incredible. 5:45 a.m. I gotta go, but this case is intense. I can't believe, this is something that I think would make the news if he had gotten out, but I think what I'll do is show it to my I'll show it to my members first, and maybe when I get back, I'll do a second one because there's so much packed in here, and I want more time to research it. It's just incredible. Think about this. He sets up the end of his wife, how he arranges it. He gets away with it. His buddy detectives intentionally lock up the wrong guy. There was, without a doubt, it was intentional. Even in his confession, he said it was like a 5'11" man, and the victim was like a 5'4" woman, and he said the man had black hair and the woman had blonde hair, and it's just like you couldn't. And who shoots someone 6 times anyways in a robbery gone wrong? And he was then fired, and it's not being for sure in a. And then he gets married again and does it again, and it's like. But just the idea that he was a police officer and put another innocent man in prison for 34 years, who only really recently got out through the Innocence Project. This is the skeletons in the closet for Louisiana, and I don't think they want people seeing it. To think that he might have gotten out is scary stuff. But with that, I'll let you go. Let me know in the comment section if you want me to do a longer version of this or if you think it was good enough. Thanks.